The doors were locked, not just closed, locked. And inside that room, the most powerful executives in women's basketball were facing a threat that had nothing to do with the game itself. NBC had come to collect. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert didn't call that emergency meeting to review game footage. She called it because a broadcast partner holding billions of dollars in contracts had delivered a message that couldn't be ignored. Protect Caitlin Clark, prioritize the star, restructure the product around the phenomenon, or face the consequences publicly. Multiple sources with knowledge of the situation indicate that NBC executives reached a breaking point this season. A collision between excitement over ratings and genuine alarm over how the league's most valuable asset was being managed. When you commit billions of dollars to a single property, you don't sit quietly while that investment gets undermined from the inside. You send someone to that conference room, and you make your expectations known. That's exactly what happened. And nothing in the WNBA will be the same because of it. If this is the kind of investigation you've been waiting for, hit that like button right now. It's the clearest signal you can send that this kind of reporting matters, and it helps us keep going deeper. The investment at the center of this conversation is impossible to overstate. NBC, Amazon, and Disney collectively rewrote the financial reality of women's basketball overnight. For a league that spent 3 decades flying commercial and staying in budget hotels, the new broadcast deal isn't just a lifeline, it's a full structural transformation. But transformations come with conditions. Those conditions, according to sources familiar with the situation, revolve almost entirely around one name. The network's roadmap for the next decade of WNBA coverage is built on the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. They want what the NBA had in the 90s, a singular force that pulls casual viewers through the screen, a personality so magnetic that the sport becomes secondary to the story. What they are not willing to accept is an environment where that asset is routinely undermined, physically targeted, or left off rosters that NBC itself was paying to broadcast. That last point is the key to understanding what escalated this meeting from routine to emergency. NBC broadcast the Olympics. And when the selection committee chose to leave the most popular female athlete on the planet off the roster, the network didn't just register disappointment. According to multiple sources, executives watched an almost certain ratings bonanza evaporate in real time. The primetime matchups, the Clark versus the world narrative, the advertising revenue attached to that story, all of it gone, flushed away by internal politics. That, reportedly, was the breaking point. The moment passive concern became direct intervention, and Engelbert walked into that meeting knowing there was no version of the conversation that ended without someone losing something. Before we get into what was actually decided in that room, drop a comment below. Do you think NBC's pressure on the league is good for women's basketball long-term, or does it risk destroying the culture that built it? Because that tension is at the absolute heart of what we're about to unpack. Engelbert walked into that meeting standing on what one source described as a razor's edge. On one side, the network executives who view the WNBA as a content platform and Caitlin Clark as the product. These are people who read engagement metrics, not box scores. They see the ratings spikes when the Indiana Fever are on. They see the social media numbers explode when Clark touches the ball. They understand what her presence means to the bottom line in a way that the locker room simply doesn't. On the other side, a player's union and a locker room culture built on the principle that respect is earned over years, not handed over after a single college career. Veterans who played overseas in difficult conditions, worked second jobs in the off-season and fought for every scrap of recognition, now being told that a 22-year-old rookie is the primary reason their salaries are rising. That message doesn't land softly. It lands like a verdict. The officiating question reportedly surfaced explicitly in that meeting. You cannot build a billion-dollar brand around a player who gets targeted out of the highlight reel every game while referees look the other way. Sponsors have noticed. The fan base has flagged it, and now, sources suggest, the league is moving toward a directive. Excessive physicality against its marquee names carries real consequences, foul out early, face fines, draw scrutiny. The whistle is about to change, and everyone in that room reportedly knew it before they left. If this channel has been your go-to source for what's actually happening in the WNBA, beyond the press releases and the filtered statements, consider becoming a member. Your support is what keeps this investigation running and keeps us ahead of the story everyone else is still catching up to. But here's the angle that almost no one else is covering, and it may be the most consequential development in this entire situation. NBC is reportedly developing a documentary series following the league, built in the mold of Formula One's Drive to Survive. Character-driven, immersive, designed to turn the rivalries and the personalities into appointment viewing. If that sounds like a win for everyone, read the fine print. Cameras choose narratives. Producers decide who plays hero and who plays antagonist. If the series centers on Clark and the young generation, while framing veterans as resistant to progress, the old guard's legacy doesn't simply fade, it gets actively rewritten, in their own league, by the network that signs the checks. The panic among established players suddenly makes complete sense when you frame it that way. This isn't just about spotlight, it's about how history gets recorded. Engelbert's task now is convincing those veterans that playing the villain in a compelling storyline might actually pay better than demanding credit for a decade of quiet sacrifice. It is, by any honest measure, an almost impossible sell to competitive athletes who already feel disrespected. And then there's Caitlin Clark herself, the eye of this entire storm. She has navigated every moment of the pressure with remarkable composure, deflecting praise, crediting teammates, staying carefully clear of the narrative being constructed around her. But the pressure is immense and largely invisible. NBC has bet its entire WNBA investment on her health, her performance, and her continued rise. If she gets injured, the damage doesn't stop at the Indiana fever. It threatens to unravel the strategic roadmap that every stakeholder in that conference room agreed to protect. The WNBA is not simply in transition, it's in metamorphosis. The era where collective struggle was the league's core identity, where every season was a fight for survival and every player doubled as an ambassador for the sport's existence, that era ended in that conference room. What's emerging is a superstar-driven, network-prioritized, media-engineered product with more money, less autonomy, and consequences attached to every decision. The question that meeting couldn't fully answer, and that nobody in the league can answer yet, is whether this version of the WNBA survives contact with its own ambitions. The pioneers who built this league haven't left the building, and the corporate machine that arrived with the broadcast deal isn't known for compromise. Something is going to give. The only real question is, what breaks first? Subscribe and hit the notification bell. The next story we're tracking connects directly to what was decided in that room, and it's moving fast. You don't want to be the last person to see it.